Hello, and I believe that we are live. Yes, we are. Hello, and welcome to the YBMB show. Those of you who are following us, and there's quite a number of you now. In fact, I think we had about 2,000 views of the last one on Monday. We'll know that we cover three subjects on this program. We cover body on Monday, we do mindset on Wednesday, and we do business on Friday. And often I'm lucky enough to have a guest who specialises in a particular area. And so today, being Wednesday, we're talking about mindset. And I'm so happy to have James Wilson with us today. So hi, James. Thanks for joining us.
Hi, Angela. No, pleasure. Good to be here.
And James, as he's going to explain to you, is an expert in management of stress and anxiety, particularly in the corporate environment. James will explain to you how he sort of, got into this space. But I've known James for some time and, come from a corporate background originally, worked for large companies such as PwC, he will tell you, and now has this private practice specifically designed to help people with stress and anxiety management. Before we get into it, I just wanted to say that, some people don't like to admit that they are struggling with anything to do with the mind. And I would just urge you, no matter how together you would perceive yourself to be, and obviously, we all are to varying degrees, we go through different stages. But I think mentorship is so important. It's important if you want to get your body together, if you want to get help with business, and also if you want to get your mindset together as well. So with that being said, I hope we can really help and have some great tips today from James. So James, welcome again. And you want to give us a little bit of background, first of all, about yourself and how you actually got into this space, and then we'll maybe talk about some tips.
Yeah, sounds good. So in terms of how I got into it and kind of my path to it, I guess, as you said, I was for a large part of my 20s, I was working in a corporate environment. First at kind of big corporates like PwC, but then moving to the consultancy side. And I guess I was your kind of like classic case of I worked hard. I worked out a lot and I was kind of go. And I enjoyed it. I enjoyed my life. But what was the turning point for me was my own, I guess, health challenges, physical and mental, and particularly experiencing chronic fatigue syndrome, which now looking back was really a result of the fact that I think I was living in stress, in fight or flight, pretty much my whole time, from when I was at my desk and working and deadlines and going to work out and, going out on the weekends, whatever it might be. It was kind of a perfect recipe really for the body to kind of shut down in the end. So I think that was really the turning point for me to look at a number of different kind of tools around mind and body to say, okay, how can I begin to kind of rebalance myself and kind of live a slightly different lifestyle and one that better serves me and get the kind of help that I need. So that kind of took me on a journey and into, okay, what's really useful for me? And I really got into NLP, which we might come on to talk about, but really how you can use your mind to influence how you're feeling and your state of stress and anxiety, and really calming that all down and the impact that can have on your body, but also how you kind of experience and enjoy life as well. So and then led me to start my own business called MindSwitch, which really is all about helping people to overcome stress and anxiety and move to that place of greater balance and health and happiness, really.
Yeah, fantastic. Great. Love the name, MindSwitch. Really great name. And I know you've got a really good page on Instagram, lots of hints and tips. We'll come on to that later. First thing I wanted to say is that this is, this feeling of anxiety and stress is not, only related to people in business either. I mean, it certainly can be people that are even not working, they're retired, they haven't started their job yet. It could be students, it could be mums, mums with now they've got all their children at home. So it's relevant to absolutely everybody. And I suppose it's brought it to a head for a lot of people during the lockdown period, and people maybe talk about it a little bit more, but it's there well before COVID. And I'm sure we've all seen people that look super productive on the outside and they've got all these amazing schedules and everything, but crashing and burning when they get home. I mean, I was a little bit like that. I was sort of really very, very focused on trying to achieve everything and be really good mum and stay fit and do well in business. And you always want to show up for everybody. And what I used to find was really weird was that when I had a really important big speech or something like that, I would come down with a cold. It's crazy. And I'm sure when I look back and know what I know now, that some of that was to do with, the body sort of saying, right, enough's enough, things like that. So I always remember one day on International Women's Day, I had all these amazing speeches lined up and woke, and I never had a cold. And then suddenly, I had it on that morning, and then it went again. It's really strange. I'm sure it's something to do with mindset. So things like that happen. And, my own journey was that I got physically very fit. I realized the importance of sleep and nutrition, and like you, have been practicing NLP for quite some time. But I found once I got the body, rested and strong, that I could implement these strategies and mindset strategies. So wanted to start with you by sort of saying, when do you notice in yourself that maybe you could do with a bit of help in this area? For me, I just mentioned like the colds and the throats and things. But when do people notice it? And when do you notice it in others as well?
Yeah, so I think there's probably, as you say, there's almost two elements to this, and it's probably the body and the mind in a sense, because, sometimes we'll feel it in our body. So we'll notice that, we've constantly got that kind of racing heart when we're kind of going into meetings or conversations or socially. We got the sweaty palms, we all know those kind of feelings that can creep up in our body. Physiologically, we're like, okay, this is something I'm experiencing more and more. And it can just be, on the other hand, your mind. So, you're noticing that your thoughts are becoming really negative. You're kind of got a lot of those what ifs, what if this happens, or what if this person thinks this of me, and all of those kind of conversations that we can have. And it can just be a sense that those are kind of looping and going round and round and round in your head as well. So I think there's definitely body stuff, physiological, which are a sign often of what is going on in our mind. And some of us are better at tuning into one or the other. So it's worth sort of checking in with yourself whether you notice any of those things. But I think broadly, we generally have quite a good sense of when we're thriving in life and when we're enjoying ourselves, and when things just don't feel quite right. We're not quite feeling on song, or that we're kind of enjoying things day to day, or we're feeling a lot of pressure on our shoulders, or, whatever that might be for you individually. But there's that sense that I'm just not really, I'm achieving, I'm doing, but I'm not really feeling good while I'm doing it, and I'm not really enjoying it. And that might just be what kind of is the thing that kind of sign points you towards needing to make a little shift or a change.
And you talk a lot about the fight or flight mechanism. And I think one of the first steps in, recognizing, before you actually sort of take steps to address these things, is to recognize that this is all perfectly normal. And it's just a sign of a good, healthy human being. Because I was reading something very interesting the other day, which we've got this primitive part of our brain, the amygdala, I think it's called, where, that is there to sort of see if there is danger. And so what it does is it makes sure that we detect anything that's remotely dangerous and pay huge attention to it. Whereas all the things, when everything's rosy and lovely, we don't take a lot of notice. If you think about it, same thing happens, we pore over bad news, for example, that one bad email we get, or that one bad text, or that one bad result, and all the other great accolades and comments you might get on social media and lovely emails and things. We're like, yeah, that's fine. But look at that bad thing that happened. And that is our amygdala working, and it's all there to protect us. So firstly, it's very normal to feel like that. And in fact, if you do feel like that, that means you are a good, strong, robust human being, I think. Once you understand it's there, then we move past that bit. There's nothing not normal about it. And then we move into how do we manage it?
Yeah, and you're just going to say you're totally right. And they say we have roughly, because of that, a negativity bias of 4-1. So naturally, we focus 4 times more on the negatives than the positives. So you're totally right, I think, to say, if you're sitting there thinking, God, I have so many negative thoughts on a daily basis, like, to an extent we all do, and it's our natural programming. It's just, okay, how do we start to try and kind of rebalance that a little bit more to be a bit more of an even playing field,
I did read a really funny second part of that article, and it sort of distinguished between men and women. And I had to laugh because it said, us women, we talk a lot more and we say a lot more words than men. And it reckons that the reason is that, when men would go out into the wild, obviously they were looking sort of to kill. So they were being really quiet, just to make sure that, whereas what women did was they made loads and loads of noise to frighten. So they would be, chattering away and making noise. So that's apparently why us women say a lot more words. So it's a really good article. Anyway, let's talk about stress management. Having got past the point where this is all normal, what sorts of things have you found have really worked? What do you recommend?
Yeah, so I think at a kind of, this is not a tool per se, but a really kind of general level, a lot of anxiety is about control. So I think the first place to often start is think about, okay, what can I actually control in my life? Because all of those kind of thoughts and those anxieties are normally because we're trying to influence or control things that we can't. So if we think about the last year, there's probably been more than ever in terms of things that we can't control, the economy, the pandemic, all of that kind of stuff. And really bringing yourself back to, okay, what on a daily basis or right now can I begin to take action on, influence, change? And that really helps kind of get away from all that big what if thinking and right down into, okay, where am I right now? What can I do? What can I change? And it brings that sense of sort of, I guess, empowerment and control back to you in terms of how you can live your life and experience your life. So that's always the first place I often start, is just saying, okay, bring the focus back to you and try and let go of all those things that you rationally you can't influence or change. And it can take a bit of practice, because it can feel a little bit unnatural at first, right?
Yeah, and people they actually sometimes believe that they don't control anything.
Yeah.
So what things can people control?
Well, the things you can always control is your communication and your behavior. So what we're kind of getting to a point, or what we want to get to a point to, is all of these things happen externally to us, whether that's in other people or external events. And we can then say, okay, I can see what's happening here, and I'm going to choose how I respond. And that might be choosing how you communicate back to that person, how you respond to the situation, what action you take, whether that's like, okay, I'm going to actually choose to think about this in a different way, or view this in a different way, or put a different frame on this situation that's going to make me feel better and my mindset feel more productive. So I think it's really it's about response and taking the control back in terms of, I can really decide what I want to communicate, do and feel at this moment.
And that is when people are in a calm, rational state, they can do that. But I suppose one of the problems is that when they are het up in the moment, they forget, don't they?
Totally.
So do you have tips for people to remember to do that?
Yeah. So I often suggest you have some sort of anchor point, I guess, to come back to yourself. And for me, what I often recommend to my clients, and do myself, I use the breath. And I'm actually just about to qualify as a breath coach myself, because I found it so helpful. But if we think about the breath, and when we're in a sort of an anxious state, or a kind of a state of stress, we're breathing up into our chest, everything's happening quickly and we're not getting air in, and things go quicker and quicker. And actually, well, first of all, it's completely free and always accessible. But the one way we can always come back to ourselves and start to slow things down is to focus in on our breath and say, all right, in this moment, I'm recognizing how I'm feeling, what's happening. I'm going to get back into my body. I'm going to take a few deeper, slower breaths, down into my stomach, and really settle that fight or flight system down, because the breath is one of the biggest communication methods to our mind that something's not okay. Because when we think about that primal thing, when we're out hunting, or there's something that's threatening our survival, we need to be breathing quickly and up into our chest, and we need to be ready to go and to run and to get away or to fight. So that's the messages that our body, our brain is getting from our body. Whereas when we can bring it, sorry, go on.
Well, I was just going to say that that's one of the great things about working out, actually, is, when you work out on a regular basis, you may forget about, whether you should be sort of focusing on your breath. It's easy to forget some of these things, but if you've got plugged into your routine, working out every day, even if you one of these people that says they don't like meditation or can't meditate, whatever, you work out every day, you do some form of exercise, doesn't matter what it is. Firstly, you have to breathe to do it, don't you? And and secondly, you've got to focus on what you're doing, so it takes your mind off of all that other stuff. So I think that breathing is such a great tip. Do you also recommend any sort of things in terms of routine, like working with your body or anything like that? There's so many things, obviously, that people can do, and we'll come on to over scheduling in a minute, but interested what you think about that.
Yeah, so I am quite a fan of a routine myself, particularly in the morning. So if I take, personally, I have my first hour-ish of the day is for me. And I do mix up a little bit what that looks like, but normally it will incorporate a bit of breath work or meditation and some form of light movement, bit of yoga, go for a walk, whatever it might be. And so for me, that's really important thing is how you start your day, because it really does set the tone for the rest of your day. You know, you're communicating to your body and your mind that you're in control, and I'm going to get myself in a really good, you know, state of mind and body before I start my day. So I think routine can be really, really powerful, and it's something that you know, when you do it at the start of the day, you know it's going to happen, you know, because we all know what it's like when the days get away from us, and it can give us that kind of stability to do that. So I always recommend to my clients to do, to meditate, to breathe, to move, but I think it's about also personalization and making it, you know, what feels good to you, because as we might come on to talk about, if it just feels like a chore or something extra on your to-do list, it kind of defeats the point.
Yeah, definitely. It's about that control again, isn't it? And I always find, again, you know, having that morning routine that sort of suits me as an individual, rather than how it's been sort of, you know, suggested in a book or something, although there are some great books on it. But having that routine that suits me, it just gives me that feeling of freedom, of control, like you said. I like trying to do it really early because there's, you know, the phone's not beeping, and it's that lovely time to yourself, and you just feel like you've won the day a little bit even before the day started when you do that, which is a really great way to go into the day. It doesn't always work, but that really works. I think on the subject of books and morning routines, I mean, you know, sometimes there's so much packed in there that you'd still be doing it by midday, you know, so you've got to find something that suits you. But and I always say to people, you know, even like just you can get a morning routine done in 20 minutes if you want, and that could still incorporate, you know, you could do something like a 7-minute workout, you could do 5 minutes meditation, you could read one chapter. I mean, you can still do these things. So I think, yeah, that's absolutely true. What other things would you suggest for people that are within their control they could sort of start to implement right now?
Yeah, so the other thing I think in terms of when you go through your day is beginning to be really aware and mindful of your internal dialogue and how you're speaking to yourself, I think, because when we think about all of those, you know, stress responses in your body, they generally come from what you're thinking, right? So we need to begin to become aware of what those patterns are for ourselves and what we're telling ourselves throughout the day that's contributing to that sense or that feeling that we're having. And for a lot of us, we don't even know what they are to begin with. So what I often recommend to people when they're starting that process is just over 24 hours. So just commit for the next 24 hours that every time you consciously notice something that's going in your head, a particular thought or a story you're telling yourself, write it down on your phone, put it in a voice note, whatever it might be, and have a look at the end of the 24 hours what you've got, because what you'll generally find is that there's a real pattern there. You know, your brain is going to be telling you the same thing over and over again, and that's just a kind of a result of how our brains work. You know, they run on patterns and the things we use most often. And that'll give you a clear sense of, okay, what are the things that actually I need to begin to work on and to shift? Maybe it's might be, okay, it's how I feel about myself. And actually I need to become kinder to myself to be able to alleviate some of these things. Or I need to actually put my focus more internally because I'm always worrying about what other people think and I'm placing my value in other people. So, you know, it will show up themes, and it's a really powerful way of then being able to really get into the kind of the real, I guess, center of what is important to you and what's going to help you make that shift.
Yeah, and the internal dialogue. Some people think that they don't have an internal dialogue, but they do. I mean, it's just how our thoughts are, isn't it? We just ask ourselves questions and we answer them. And one of the tips I was given was to have, you can set an alarm on your phone, and it will say something kind to yourself, or I found really very powerful is to the concept of primary questions. So when you think about it, what question are you asking yourself the whole time? And you find that people struggling with stress will be asking things like, why am I not good enough? You know, why did this happen? Oh, you know, why did I cock that up? Like that, as opposed to the nice questions like, you know, a question I like is, how can I move this forward? So it's a much more forward looking and positive question. And, you know, having those sort of alarms, I like that, even though sometimes it might beep and someone sees it and thinks, oh, that's really weird. But these are all little good things to sort of catch yourself, because this has been ingrained, isn't it, since, you know, for years and years and years. It's not easy to change this stuff around, but the impact is amazing if you can start to get a grip of your thoughts and be kinder, like you said.
Yeah, and it goes back to, and I use that method, but probably at the moment a more old school one where I have Post-it notes around the house in different points, by the kettle, on the mirror in the bathroom, that just have those sort of things that remind you to check in, check in on yourself throughout the day and begin to bring your awareness more and more to those things. Because, yeah, as you say, they're just, what I always say, you can't necessarily control the thoughts that come to you in the moment, but you can always control what you then do with that thought. And whether you replace it with another one, you change your perspective, as you say, you ask yourself an interesting question, and over time responding differently and placing different importance on those thoughts will change what comes up for you in the future. So you're almost doing the work for yourself and your experience into the future, if that makes sense.
Yeah, because if you ask, why am I no good at this? Your brain is very obliging in giving you an answer that tells you, oh, because you're crap at it, sort of thing. Whereas if you say, well, how can I move forward? It will also be very obliging in giving you some answers and some strategies. But other things that I wanted to ask you, because there are some other tangible things that I found that, like keeping your blood sugars level, getting enough sleep, there are things like that as well that help stress, aren't there? Have you sort of had any experience of those sorts of changes with your clients that have helped them on the nutrition side and stuff?
Yeah, so I guess there is what I call like the fundamentals, and that is, getting a good night's sleep, trying to stay really consistent if possible with your sleep pattern. So roughly when you're going to bed and when you're getting up, and moving your body and getting outside into nature. So all of those sort of things that really kind of are what we're designed to get, nature and sleep and food and hydration, all those kind of things. But something I have been playing around with myself, but also doing with my clients, is actually having a bit more of starting the day with more of a protein-based breakfast, protein and vegetables, and staying away from the kind of the sugars, the carbs, the oats, the fruit, and all that kind of stuff that can cause those kind of peaks or troughs. And I've certainly noticed a huge difference when I've shifted to that and starting the day in a different way. And I think the diet is an interesting one, because there's so much out there and so many contrasting views and perspectives. I think it can take a bit of time to work out what's right for you. But certainly I've found for everyone I've seen that has been a really helpful shift for them to make. And also there's a lot around gut health and the gut brain connection, which I am not an expert on, but I think it's certainly well known now that your gut plays a huge role in both your physical and your mental health. So, whether it's eating fermented foods or probiotics and all variants of that theme, I think that is also something that's proven to be really powerful for a lot of people.
Yeah, definitely. I had a nutritionist, Clarissa, on Monday, and her passing comment, because we were saying that everything about you really, the way you look and the way you feel boils down to the fuel that you put into your body, same as a car. And we were sort of saying that, that saying, you are what you eat, holds true, it's a saying because it's true. But she then added, you are what you absorb, because if your gut is not absorbing all of these nutrients, then, they're going to bypass, so they're not going to do you as well. So gut health is really important. But definitely on the YBMB program, we take them through a season. We just finished the winter season. The winter season, now we're starting the spring season next week, and people get phenomenal results in all areas. But we start off with what they eat, nutrition, and how they move their body, the training. And it only takes about 3 weeks to get them into the habit where they've now got a really good solid routine. And it does start, like you said, with protein-based foods, satiating foods, really healthy foods, whole foods, basic foods, no ingredients in them. And so they can get their body, back to working optimally. And that in turn then, because obviously we can't see our brain, but it's still, just the same as we can see a muscle in our arm. And if it's doing better and here on the outside, you can be pretty sure it's doing better on the inside as well. So that aspect of it is really important. There's an interesting concept that I wanted to touch on called, facts versus story. Before I do that, are there any other sort of practical tips that we've not mentioned that you often talk about with your clients?
Yeah, well, I was just going to pick up on a couple of things you said, which jogged something in my memory. And one of which was that concept of what we absorb in our food. And something that I do recommend to people is, if you think about the state you want to be in when you eat, that is really important. So if you're in a really calm state when you're eating and you're in rest and digest, your body is set up to absorb all the nutrients you're taking in. if you're eating at your desk and you're stressed and you're, in a rush and you've got to go to your meeting, your body is not in the right place to be consuming and absorbing that food. And that can make a really powerful impact. So it might just be, taking 2 minutes or even a minute just to breathe deeply before you eat and get your body ready for that can be really powerful. And also that point you made about not being able to see the progress in your mind in the same way as in your body. And I think that's really why it's really important to give yourself credit for what is changing and be more proactive in saying, okay, let me really give myself credit for what has changed. What am I experiencing differently? How am I thinking differently, acting differently, and writing it down or keeping a log of it in a way that brings your attention to it, because your mind won't do it for you. We know that with the negativity bias. And so it isn't visible. So we need to put that effort into actually doing that.
So that's why journaling, as you said, writing it down is such a great part to have of any of your routine, the morning routine, because it's not writing for writing's sake. It's about getting it out and putting it down on paper to clear your head. But also, I think it's like a bit of a shower for the brain, because it empties your head. But also, you can go back, can't you? And you can read and think, wow, didn't know that I was thinking like that then, and now I think so differently. And we see that a lot on the change of people. I love showing people a video of what they very first said at the beginning of the season, and then showing them the difference and how they speak, and they're just so much more positive, because they've taken into account some of the things that you've said there, and it really, really works. I think the other thing that I wanted to mention was for us, it's important for us to recognize that there are the facts about a situation, and then there's the story that we make up. And it's just when I heard that concept, it was just really very, very enlightening, because we can absolutely ruin our day with our story, can't we? About what people might think and how useless we are, that something's gone wrong, or how we don't like something. And when you start to analyze the facts of something, it's just, this happened, that happened, and that's the end of it. And, and it's really, we shouldn't be worrying about who's thinking what, because one, we can't control it, as you said, and two, it could be completely fabricated. And if we're going to have a story, we might as well make up a great one. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's super interesting. And it is that sense of, we'll all know other people who we could go into the same situation with them and we would feel completely different about it than they would. And that is so often based on what our previous experiences are and our associations are with that thing, which essentially is the story we've created in our minds about what this X means for us and our life. But as you say, really taking a step back, and I think it goes back to that response piece, going, okay, this is the reality, this is the truth, this is what's happening. The rest is up to me. Yes, I might have some things in my past that are influencing how I'm feeling right now, but I can choose now to respond in a different way. And I know that I have the power to do that. Because as you say, we all have these stories, beliefs, whatever variations you want to kind of describe them as, but they're really what we view our reality as. And what's important to remember is that's different for everyone. So how can it be true?
Yeah. And the other thing I think is that it's really probably important for us to mention, and I know you cover this, is about getting outside of our head and thinking about other people and gratitude for what's happened and how we can help other people. Because when you're thinking about someone else, and very often you will do so much more for someone else than you will for yourself, and we can be our own worst enemies, and yet we've never talked to other people the way we sometimes talk to ourselves. But that whole thing about gratitude journals and stuff, it's not cheesy rubbish. It is really it's almost selfish in a way, because when you actually do stuff for other people and you make a great impact, it makes you feel really good as well. And so you get a double whammy. You have this lovely impact with someone else and you feel better about yourself. So I think the whole practice of gratitude and contribution, and trying to at least find some time in your day to impact others, is very, very useful for everybody concerned.
Yeah, totally. And, when we think about, especially about kindness, as you say, to other people, that is what that generates internally for us, is the opposite of stress. Like in the hormones that it produces, serotonin, all that kind of stuff, that is what is going to kick you out of the stress response and feeling anxious. So it's really as you say, it's powerful for other people because you're doing great things for them, but also it's good for you too. And some people feel a bit funny about that. It's like, oh, well, like I'm benefiting from this. How is that authentic? But I think it's human nature and it's natural, and therefore it's brilliant that you can help other people and also impact on your own health and well-being and your state and how you feel. I think it's brilliant. And I think, yeah, whether it is just doing a gratitude journal or getting out there and actually helping other people in some way is a great way to shift how you feel.
Yeah, and that's a whole another subject, because I had someone on about impact the other week, and he was saying some amazing things which were lovely. We could talk about that as well. I'm sure we could talk so much more about this, James. There's lots of other things. Are there any other final tips that you wanted to share, or have we covered it? I think we've had a good introduction to this subject for sure.
I mean, look, there's always more places you could go to, and different ways of mind and body you can start to access calm. But I think what I was going to sort of say was that, we are always on this sliding scale between, sort of surviving and thriving and calm and stressed, and actually, recognizing where you are and seeking the support that you need to get you to where you want to be is really important. And this is a natural mechanism. We all feel it day to day to a different extent, and actually it's a brilliant thing to be able to actually get the kind of the recognition that you need to get support and to invest in your own well-being in that way.
Yeah, invest in your own well-being. That's exactly it. We've got one life. I always look at, I've got this big egg timer, and I like looking at it and sort of thinking about the sand as sort of grains of time. And sadly with life, you can't just turn it upside down, it's just sort of going. And you want to sort of make it as productive and happy and healthy for yourself and others and your loved ones as you can. And so, don't wait until you really, really have to get help in anything. I think, the importance of a mentor, if you want to get physically fit, get yourself a trainer. If you want to sort of push ahead, start a new business, learn a new skill, find out who can help you with that, get that mentor. If you want to feel happier in your life, more productive, more pleased and satisfied with what you do, then, get some help from someone like James, who, you do one-to-one sessions, don't you, as well as group sessions, short bursts or over a longer period of time, and get that help and start that journey of sort of self-awareness, self-management, managing your mental state. It's amazing what it can do for the quality of your life and make you feel so much happier with just the simple things. And you can still enjoy all the other sort of trappings, but, just to be happy in yourself is probably the most important thing, I think, in life. So with that, I just wanted to say thank you so much, James, for sharing.
Thank you for having me.
And your company is called Mind Switch.
Yeah. It's called Mind Switch, and I'm at Mind Switch Coach on Instagram if anyone wants to check me out or drop me a message or anything.
Brilliant. Or I guess they can find you on LinkedIn as well, and and make contact with you. And if you want to find out a little bit more about the overall program for YBMB, where we you help you with your body first of all, we help you with your mindset to stay on track with that, and then once you've got those two foundations in place, we then help you push forward with your business and your career. Then make contact with me. There's some links down below, and you can start the new season. So with that, thank you to James, and have a lovely day, everybody. And lovely to talk to you, James. Really appreciate you coming on.
Good to talk to you too. Thank you.
Take care. Bye-bye.